So I have shied away from making videos on the US trade tariffs on Switzerland and the possible effects they will have on the Swiss watch industry for two reasons. For one, I'm not an expert on imports and exports, and I don't feel qualified to speak on this. And two, I am a Canadian who lives in the UK, so I feel pretty out of the North American zeitgeist. I didn't want to speculate on what this meant from an uninformed place. But now that it is real, it's official, the tariffs were put into place on Thursday, August 7th. A 39% tariff on Swiss imports is now in effect. In this video, we're going to talk about what this means and what happens next. This isn't a political channel. I'll be keeping it just about the watches as much as I can and what this means on a practical level for the industry. I am going to break this off into sections because that's just how my brain works, but there will be timestamps down below if there's a specific topic you want to navigate to. So, first of all, this does not mean you will see a 39% price increase the next time you visit the authorized dealer, but some of the cost will certainly be passed off to the consumer. With tariffs, it isn't the exporter who pays the 39%, but it is the importer. They are paid to the customs authority when entering the country, and usually must be paid before receiving the goods. So, for clarity, it isn't Rolex paying the US Customs Authority. It will be the importing party. And those extra costs incurred usually result in higher prices, essentially passing along the tariff to the consumer. It is the end buyer who pays for a majority of the tariff. So, as of today, we don't know how high prices will be, but businesses importing Swiss watches today will have a 39% tariff to pay to get those goods in. And some of that cost will certainly be passed along to people purchasing watches in the US. Now, this is a bigger dialogue that has been happening within enthusiast circles. What makes a Swiss watch a Swiss watch? When is a watch Swiss? What if the movement is a Chinese movement that was then cased in a watch in Switzerland? A lot of this will need to be carried out on a case-by-case basis. For most people watching this video, this won't be news to you, but in order for a watch to claim themselves to be Swiss-made, 60% by value needs to be produced in Switzerland. This is something they take very seriously. Under Swiss law, this means that the movement must be Swiss, so assembled in Switzerland, inspected by the manufacturer in Switzerland, and 60% of the manufacturing costs incur in Switzerland. The movement must be cased up in Switzerland, and at least 60% of the manufacturing costs are incurred in Switzerland. So manufacturers will need to decide if they want to continue to rate Swiss made on the dial, adhere to this protocol, and face tariffs, or outsource more in Europe and come under EU tariffs. They could circumvent tariffs by rerouting goods through third-party countries and participating in something called origin washing. I can't see Switzerland doing this. It is illegal and it would be fairly easy to spot. Swiss watch manufacturers are very proudly Swiss. They have invested a lot of infrastructure in being Swiss, and they aren't going to change that. Number 3, I live in Europe. I don't care. Can I finally get the Pepsi? This is one of the funniest attitudes for me to see, and for me in my personal circumstances, one of the more relatable ones. Like, I completely get the impulse to not really care about what happens in the US. It kind of feels, not my prob, not my job, you guys sort it out over there. I'm in Belgium. I'm eating waffles. This is a you problem. But the world just doesn't work like that. We have this interconnected, codependent trade system that is awesome. The world and humanity is always at its best when we are working together, when we're leaning on each other's expertise in mutually beneficial partnerships. Our most recent data for Swiss watch imports is from 2024, with North and South America being the strongest market. The USA alone accounted for about 17% of Swiss watch imports, and the continents of North and South America was the strongest market last year, up 5.4% from 2023, and represented over 1/5 of Swiss watch exports. Now, if you place China and Hong Kong together, another political thing I don't want to get into, but just for the numbers and looking at Swiss watch sales, if we put them together, they cumulatively are not that far behind the USA in imports. but they are also declining markets. China experienced a 25% decrease in sales, and Hong Kong an 18.7% decrease. So the USA was a bright spot, increasing their sales, but I can't see that trend continuing. I can't see that upward cycle continuing with importers now having a 39% tax slapped on there. But the question remains, I live in Europe. Can I get that Pepsi now? Can I get those harder to get watches now? It probably will increase the availability of watches depending on where you live, but that is just me speculating. The US will likely import less, and although that doesn't mean your country will import more, in theory, there is a higher chance of harder to get models being more available because they won't be in the US if they are importing less. But on a serious note, to me, this isn't cause for celebration. With less interest, less sales, we are going to see less innovation and brands will be less willing to take risks. Jobs will certainly be lost on all sides, on the European side and the manufacturer side, and also on the retail and sales teams in the USA as demand decreases. Overall, this is a net negative for watch enthusiasts and the watch industry as a whole. I hope I'm wrong. I would love it if sales stayed the same, but I think that's unrealistic. Number 4, can't rich people just afford it? So an attitude I've seen a lot is rich people can just afford this. They won't bat an eyelash, whatever. They don't care. There are so many replies to this. I almost don't know where to start. For one, something I've noticed is that rich people are kind of just the same as normal people. Some of them are frugal and cheap and almost live beneath their means because they want to be prudent with their money. And some rich people are very flashy. They love to spend their money. They like to splash out, and they won't bat an eyelash, as this statement says, because they can afford it. Of the very wealthy people that I personally know, I would say half are almost cheap. They're frugal and very value conscious. It sounds silly, but if a very wealthy person was looking into buying a $100,000 watch for easy numbers, and that watch then became $139,000, that's a big leap. That's a meaningful leap and could make the difference between them buying that watch or not buying that watch. That's assuming the entirety of the tariff is passed off on them. Say it's 20% is say 20% is passed off on the end consumer. My frugal, very, very wealthy friends probably wouldn't buy it. So number 1, rich people are all different than each other. Some people are really into value, and this will be a big problem for them. And number 2, everyone's definition on who is rich and what is wealth, who is wealthy, is different. For example, when I was in university, spending $200 on a watch, that wasn't even unthinkable. It just was impossible. I didn't have that much money extra to spend on the stuff I needed, let alone something I didn't need like a watch. Now, as a person in my 30s, I can comfortably afford to buy a Rolex with a bit of saving, quite a bit of saving, or a Tudor with a lot less saving, but still saving. These luxury brands rely heavily on people in the middle lane that I consider myself in. For people in this lane, these are purchases that are very special, they're aspirational, and they need to be at a price where it is still doable. If Rolex in the UK even did a 20% increase, a Datejust 36 would become £9,720, and I wouldn't find this aspirational or doable or worth it anymore. Number 5, is this good news for German, British, and Japanese watchmakers? I think yes and no. I think if I was a German watchmaker, say, I would certainly be seeing opportunity in this moment, and I would be thinking on how I could capitalize on this. But keep in mind, they are facing 15% US tariffs, which is a heck of a lot smaller than 39%, but still meaningful. Do I think Nomos will be taking over from Rolex or Alonga Unzona taking over from Patek? No, but there might be a meaningful newfound interest and bump in sales. Number 6, which brands will be hurt the worst? It will be smaller and mid-sized brands that take the biggest hit. So small independents and entry-level and mid-level priced brands. A lot of these watchmakers, brands, manufacturers just don't have the tools or the capital to weather this time, nor do they have the profit margins to be able to take this kind of hit. I am not saying they're going to disappear by next month, but they will be hit the hardest. Let's finish off with some of my thoughts. If you regularly watch this channel, you know it is my natural instinct to be cautious, if we put it nicely. I wish I wasn't wired this way, but when something bad happens or something that will cause uncertainty, it's my natural instinct to think the worst. But there is one thing I think the luxury watch industry has working for it, is luxury perception and the way luxury works. I've been saying it too much lately. I know it's annoying. I'm going to stop saying it. But this last time, luxury watches are Veblen goods, meaning their desirability increases as their price and perceived exclusivity increases. I think they might be uniquely situated to ride this one out, lean further into the luxury and craftsmanship angle, and hope for the best. That is the most optimistic reading I can give this. I do not think this is an overall positive thing for watchmaking. I don't think it's an overall positive thing for the US, and it's certainly not for watch enthusiasts. I believe because of this, we will be seeing less innovation, experimentation. There will be less watches being produced, which means less jobs in the sector. I think we'll be seeing a greater reliance on existing IP because there won't be the market or resources for creating new and fresh things. I said it somewhere else in the video, but I really mean it. Humanity is at its best when we are working together. Watchmaking was at its best when brands were working together and leaning into their unique specialities before everything had to be in-house and vertically integrated. This is all very new. This is an uncertain time, and we'll see what happens.